Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us as we talk all things faith, family, and fitness. A special thanks to Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for their support of Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community one family at a time.
Hello, this is Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families. Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. And for those who are listening on the day this podcast airs, honey, happy Memorial Day.
Oh, yes. Happy Memorial Day, man. I feel like we just did this show. Is this going to be different this time?
Well, we are going to have a different kind of show. But before we go any further, we really want to recognize and remember all those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, hun. Those soldiers who gave their life in protecting and defending our country. So if you have a loved one who paid that ultimate sacrifice, can we just say thank you? We see you, and we are praying for you and your family on this very special Memorial Day. Even though I know a lot of people don't listen to it on the day it's posted, but if so, we still want to acknowledge those that served for us, died for us.
Well, and I think, we also have to just thank all of the folks out there that work for this country, for the good of this country. I mean, sometimes it is aggravating in all of the negative talk that we have about this country. And sometimes we lose sight of really what this country has. And it's really a little bit about what our show is going to be about, the gratitude of what we have in this country. Even though we are still recording this in the time of COVID-19, and we look at that as such a very difficult time globally. And of all countries, this country has the fortitude to drive through this and has the Constitution behind it to drive through it better than any other country. And so that was laid by the people who fought and protected to keep it as strong as it is. And so, I do think it's a time to just realize, man, we just need to be more thankful for those people who came before us.
Yeah. So, it's also, hun, kind of the unofficial start of summer. Memorial Day usually is. And so I think it's going to be definitely one for the record books. All of 2020, I think, is going to be one for the record books. So
I just need to say that this weather needs to change. Now, I don't know when you're going to listen to
this. Is gratitude your attitude?
My attitude is really grumpy when it comes to weather right now. We have had, I don't even know how much rain.
Yeah.
We have to get over it. We need summer.
If you were a duck,
sunshine.
you would be loving this.
I think I saw a duck with a snorkel the other day. That's how much rain we've had.
Well, that's why this show, I think, is so important, hon. So we are going to kind of focus on remembering and celebrating what God has done in the past, acknowledging what he's doing right now, and trusting in him for what he's going to do in the future. So we're going to be talking about that in today's show, the importance of remembering and that grateful heart. But before we do, hon, we better thank our sponsors.
Yeah, let's thank Mansfield Insurance Agency. They have built a reputation in business built on caring, listening, and protecting their customers. Mansfield Insurance Agency began in 1981 by Jim Mansfield and is dedicated to serving individuals and businesses in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So for all your insurance needs, contact Mansfield Insurance Agency at 800-230-3927.
We also want to thank Maxwell Construction, which was founded in 1988 by John Maxwell. And since that time, Maxwell Construction has grown and expanded to be one of the most recognized commercial construction companies in the tri-state. And so if you have a hospital, a school, a restaurant, apartment, or retail center, Maxwell Construction is able to meet your needs. So call Maxwell Construction today, 812-537-2200.
All right, let's talk about a couple of different things coming up here for Rock Solid Families. The cool thing about some of the changes coming is that we are starting to get to see people face to face.
Face to face.
Yeah, and so please, if there is a something that you need help with, whether it's a marriage issue, family issue, parenting issue, just a life coaching issue, please reach out and contact us. You can reach us at 812-576-7625. We can accommodate whether it be a Zoom type call or a face-to-face at this point. So
6 feet apart, of course.
6 feet apart and trying to keep people safe that way. So that's another cool thing.
But we're also excited, hon. I'm so excited that we're going to resume our fitness classes here on June 1st, unless something break loose and the governor takes us back into quarantine. After being canceled since mid-March, we cannot wait to see our friends again. So, hon, I just want to run through some times that our classes are going to meet. They're going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m., and then Tuesday, Thursday, and we're going to have a new summer hour of 7 p.m.
Yeah, so let's put a little emphasis on that. We used to do our Tuesday, Thursday evenings at 6 p.m., but we're going to bump that to 7. Just because it is summer hours, it's lighter out a little bit, and we can get some people who maybe have had some chance to come home from work, maybe get a bite to eat, rest, and get to us. So that'll be Tuesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. will be the big change for that part.
Starting on June 1st.
June 1st.
Yep.
Also, hey, I got to put a plug in. So,
this is exciting.
We used to do our Strong Dads kind of as a quarterly sort of thing where we would run it for 8 weeks and then take several weeks off and then start back again. We are going to convert our Saturday mornings completely from 8 a.m. to 9:30 in the morning are going to be completely dedicated to dads, fathers, men. Okay. And ladies, this is not to kick you out. This is to, hey, come on now. This is to just provide that opportunity. One of the things here at Rock Solid Families that we really want to pour into is strengthening dads in the home as well as in the gym. And so whether you've ever attended before a Strong Dad session, it doesn't matter. We're going to do a 45-minute workout followed by the opportunity for a 45-minute small group session for men. So that will now be our Strong Dads every Saturday morning, 8 to 9:30.
Beginning on Saturday, June 6th, that would be
That'll
the
be
very
our first Saturday.
Yeah. And it's just an awesome opportunity for men to gather and to be encouraged and supported by other men and being held accountable. So yeah, it's that way when you come when you can, right? It's not like you have to sign up ahead of time or go every week. It's when you can.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you've missed a week or two. It doesn't matter. Just show up on Saturday mornings.
They're all standalones, which is exciting. Hun, I just have to say before we move into our topic that I was looking through some of our analytics on our podcast, and it is amazing to me where some of our listeners are coming from. We have like a dozen different countries that people are listening from, Poland and Spain, France. It was just amazing to me. Also, the different cities. Do you know our biggest listenership is coming from Norwood, Ohio?
Yeah.
So if you're from Norwood, can we just shout out to you? You're a rock star.
Whoever you are in Norwood, because it doesn't show us exactly who you are.
Oh, no.
And with my Strong Dads podcast, my biggest listenership is Norwood and Columbus, Ohio.
Wow, that's awesome.
Again, and so that's just really cool.
Burlington, Kentucky is another huge listenership. Big one.
So we just want to thank you and continue to spread this. If you like our message, then spread it. Help us out, because that's part of the benefit of doing the podcast, that we get the conversation going. Yeah. And if you think our conversations, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, if you think the conversations are meaningful and important, then share them. And also we would ask that if you have a question, an idea, a suggestion, email us.
Yeah.
You can go to rocksolidfamilies.org, and we have a contact section there. Email us, because we love to hear from you. When we get responses back, we love to hear from you, and we definitely want to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
This show is not good to anyone if it's not growing and challenging us as well as us challenging you.
Yeah, and I want to shout out to those in California too. We have a huge amount of listeners from California, which is so cool. So thank you so much, and please please continue to share it and get the word out that we our mission is strong and healthy families. And if that's what you believe too, then help us spread this word, because it's not going to do us any good, like you said, hun, if it's not shared. So at the top of the show, let's get to our topic today.
Yeah, tell me. Come on, give me more. Bring me on here.
We were talking about looking back and taking time to remember and be grateful for what God has done. Hun, I just want to say first, for some, and those are some that walk in our doors at Rock Solid Families, looking back can be painful. It's hard. There's a lot of difficult memories sometimes that trigger deep emotion, and that can be hard to handle. So if you're out there and you're thinking, I don't want to look back, I don't want to, what can I have to be grateful for?
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Yeah, there's no doubt, hun, but I think it also becomes the mindset that not just looking back, but living in the moment. Depending on where you let your eyes focus, there are many times when I've looked back and I've said, it really wasn't that bad.
Right.
It really wasn't that bad. And I'm not trying to diminish anything that any of us are going through right now. But sometimes, based off of our experience and our wiring, we see things we're going through in a moment, and based off of how our brain is wired and our conditioning, we might just see nothing but the dirt, nothing but the pain. And we come through it and go, and I'll just say, I think of school that way. I think of school when I was, a student, like, oh man, every day, as we talk about, our kids are wrapping up their school year. And then, when you look back at your school years and you go, they really, actually, they were kind of fun, you know? So it really depends on your outlook and what you want to look at.
Yeah. It's so funny, hun, because I have been journaling for a couple decades. And so I love picking out a new journal. It's kind of like a new season, a new rite of passage.
It's like a new pair of running shoes.
It is.
Isn't it?
Well, gosh.
That's what I would think of it as.
But I will be very intentional about what that journal looks like and what verse is on the front. And so just in early February, I didn't realize this until I looked back recently, just in early February, I needed a new journal. And so I went out and I searched and I found one at Hobby Lobby, and the front of it, hun, no lie, says, start each day with a grateful heart. And so I immediately was drawn to that one, and I picked that one up, and I didn't know at the time how important that phrase, that attitude of gratitude was going to be in the middle of a worldwide pandemic with 3 teenagers.
Yeah.
So,
hun, I think about this, like, we sometimes act like we're the only people, the only generation, the only culture that has gone through challenging times. And, challenging times, when we look in the Bible, and, I think of the Israelites hanging out and being under, slavery for 400 years in Egypt.
Yeah.
And just those times of, you're telling me it's going to get better?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because obviously that's 400 years of multiple generations. And within your own generation, really, is it ever going to get better?
But, that story of God's people in slavery in Egypt for 400 years, they prayed and prayed for God to save them and to set them free. And so he sends a man named Moses, and he sends these plagues, and he shows these miracles to his people, and they are freed out of Egypt, and they go through the desert, and they're whining and complaining about everything from being hungry to being thirsty.
Even after they get manna, even after they get all this stuff.
God provides these things, and they continue to be ungrateful and disobedient. And hun, I tell this story in children's ministry all the time because kids can really relate to whining,
And so can parents.
So can parents, yeah. But because of that, an entire generation of men and women wandered in the desert for the next 40 years until every single one of them had died. And I think about that. Do you know anyone like that? Because I can get that way at times. I know.
Yeah.
Ungrateful and whiny.
It's part of our purpose in our show today is, as I said earlier, is not to minimize a difficult time that people are going through, but to put perspective on things and to look at what we do have. Because when we really look at it, most of us find a whole lot of brightness in there. and things that we can actually draw energy from.
Yeah. You know, hun, as I was really praying about this show and where we were going to go with this, I literally was in my journal and I was in Joshua chapter 4, which, Joshua was a protege of Moses. So Moses never received the sight of the promised land either. He got to see it. But
that's frustrating too.
I know. I mean, because of his disobedience, Moses and that entire generation were not allowed to cross over to the promised land. And so it was now up to the children and the grandchildren to enter. And hun, in Joshua chapter 4, I love this story of them being called by God to cross over the Jordan River that was at flood stage. And they were told to step their foot, the priest to lead the way, and to step their foot into the raging waters. And how scary that would have been to do that, even though God said, I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to get to the promised land, this is what you got to go through.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing in their way. And wow, that would have freaked me out. But you know, what's funny is that those were little kids at the time who had seen their parents and grandparents walk through the Red Sea just 40 years earlier. So, you know,
I'm as you're talking about that, you know, I'm looking at raging water, flood water, and I'm seeing like, really, this is my way that I have to go. This doesn't even sound like a good alternative.
Right.
I think it's also why God puts you in uncomfortable places.
Yeah.
So that you are pushed like, okay, this isn't sounding like a great alternative, but it may be the best alternative for me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we are in hard, difficult places because as we've talked about on the show before, comfort is what keeps us idle.
I think we did a show on that.
Yeah.
I loved that show, by the way, because it is so true. We can get in our comfort zone and we get lazy and we can kind of get ungrateful.
You're
and
unchallenged.
we get selfish. Our eyes stick on ourselves where when we're challenged. So, hun, let's look back at our life for a little bit. And I really want those out there listening to do the same. I would even take a piece of paper and just take a couple minutes, push pause on this podcast, if you will.
We didn't say stop.
Stop it. No, just pause it. So take some time to remember and celebrate what has God done in your life to guide and protect you. Maybe you didn't see it when the raging water was in front of you and it looked overwhelming and scary. Maybe you're in the middle of this worldwide pandemic and you're thinking, what in the world could God be doing? But let's take a moment and really talk about what are some things that we've seen God do to guide and protect us.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, I think just like how you and I met, you know, whoa, this is but the idea that we weren't searching.
No.
You know, we weren't searching, and, you know, we come across each other's path and you're like, that's a milestone of change. That's a marker of change in your life.
Right.
And you think like, well, what came together for all that to happen?
Right.
I mean, we met in Florida. Okay.
Right. But we went to the same college.
We went to the same school, but we never even knew each other. And
No.
so it's those kind of things where you're like, okay, well, this is a change in our life. And now to have some thankfulness in that, to reflect on that.
You know, and I look back on that, and our son has done the same thing. I wanted to go to a Division I college and play volleyball, and I didn't get any offers into Division I college. I got an offer in a Division II college, and so I wouldn't be at NKU. I would have not met you if it would have not been for that change in my life, that guide that God gave me. Our son didn't get into the Naval Academy, ended up going to Miami University on a full ride, and that's where he met his wife. And so it's like, thank you, God, for that closed door that opened another door where I can see where you're working.
Yeah. I think, Hunt, of the unrest that we had in our faith. Early on, we had in our marriage, we had some unrest, some discomfort in our faith. And I was more uncomfortable than you were. I was making you uncomfortable because I was
You're
uncomfortable.
challenging me to think.
And I was just like, no, I don't get all this. I'm not connecting with this. And I started challenging being challenged and then challenging myself. And then lo and behold, we have neighbors that move in. We don't even know these people, and they invite us to go to church with them. They invite us. They don't even know us.
Right.
And they invite us to go to church with them, and just kind of out of friendliness, we go to church, and that was a life change for us.
Changed the course of our lives. Yeah. Absolutely. And we turned from a religion to a relationship with Christ. That really, hon, that decision for us and that protection of God, I believe, has really opened up doors for our family. And that intimacy we have with Christ now would have never happened if it would not have been for God putting those people in our lives. You know, how about our prayer of Rock Solid Families 8 years ago?
Yeah, and I think the thing that is always challenging with people is you think you're going to get the dream, and you think it's going to go step by step exactly the way that you want it. Obviously, you dream it in a very easy fashion. And our dream for Rock Solid Families was an 8-year
process.
I won't say drudgery because it wasn't drudgery, but it was 8 years of, is this going to happen or not?
You felt like you were in the oven. You used to say that all the time.
I feel like I'm in the oven, man. I feel like I'm baking. Like I'm not where I need to be, but I'm not quite ready to be where I need to be. And, and so these are things that take time. If we look from where we are to where the future is, it seems like it's going to take forever to get there. When we look in retrospect, we go, wow, that just happened. And, I was just being groomed for it.
Yeah. And then I think about, hon, the conversation that we had since before we were married about adoption and how, we were married for 30 years before we, entered 3 more children into our lives. And they loved us to tell the story of just how we talked about that and prayed about that, even before we met our 3 youngest kids that were in your building. They were in your school building as siblings in an elementary school in the foster care system. And so, I think about that, like God was preparing our hearts for that time.
I think we've shared a little bit of this story. We've talked about it many times, but I think what's interesting in that story, hon, is that was always on your heart. So you were ready to roll. I was the resistance.
You were the naysayer.
Yeah, I was the resistance. And so God had to have me be broken down. He had to use me. And so I was the one that, I was
you initiated it.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, He brings them into my heart first.
Your building.
And through my building, I'm the one that sees the situation. And it was like, man, that's only through God. Because if that idea would have just come through you, like if you would have seen these kids first and brought them to me, it still would have not connected to my heart. And so God said, okay, bro, you're going to be slow on this one. I'll show you exactly how this is going to work.
Yeah. So what about for you? What are some things in your life, some crossroads that you can see now that God really was involved and that He led you to where you are right now? Maybe He still has you in the oven, but in order to never forget, by the way, His power and provision, the Lord told Joshua in that story in Joshua chapter 4 to collect 12 stones from the dry riverbed and to build a memorial. And each stone represented one of the 12 tribes. And this memorial, hon, was to remind them of God's power and provision, not just for them, but for their children and their grandchildren. It was supposed to be really something to talk about. And so that's what we want to get to. It's not only our responsibility, hon, as adults to remember and celebrate what God has done, but it's our job to tell the next generation. We're only one generation away of complete godlessness.
Right. I think this is such an important point that you're getting to right here, hon. The idea, you're not to lay out the 12 stones and pray to the stones and worship the stones. We have a cross, multiple crosses actually hanging in our house. The cross is not there so that we go and pray to the cross. It's a piece of wood, okay? The cross is there for us to have a symbol, a sign to remember what was done for us, okay?
Right.
And so I think it's so important that we don't worship these things. We don't pray. They're stones, they're wood, they're objects, but they are kind of these mnemonic devices, these memory devices that should trigger us to say, wow, look what's happened what was done for me.
Yeah.
And I think even through this Corona time, you have an opportunity here to just whine and moan and groan about all this, like we're out in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen some great things come out of this. One of the things that we've done is we built a puzzle. Okay, so we've got this puzzle. We all kind of liked it in the house. It's kind of cool looking, and we went ahead and glued that thing.
Yes.
And we have it set up and we have it framed. And so, anybody else might just see the puzzle. Mm-hmm. To us, this is Corona puzzle.
Yeah.
This is Corona
puzzle. And it's going
to
hang in our basement that we've been working on as our project of Corona time. Hun, but Deuteronomy chapter 6, I love this, and this was in my devotional the other morning, and it goes right along with Joshua chapter 4, because parents are commanded to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And it says to impress these commands on your children, to talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down, when you get in your car. That doesn't say car, but I'm sure it would if it was
your
back
chariot
then.
or your camel.
It says tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your forehead, to write them on the door frames. In other words, hon, never forget who God is and what he's done. Don't forget to tell your kids.
Yeah.
Share your story, Yeah.
This is such a reminder also to our younger kids tapping into our older generation.
Yeah.
The people that come before, because the pathway that they walked is what got that little kid to where he is today. And so there's meaning in that. So I think it's important. We love to talk to our grandparents are all gone now, but just we're cherishing the time with our own parents.
Right.
And I love when our parents are speaking with our children and sharing their stories.
Or even their great-grandchildren,
Yeah.
So, hon, as we wrap up today's show, let's talk about our challenge, okay? Mm-hmm. And let's take a serious look. And we want you to take a serious look at how you're passing the baton of faith to your children and your grandchildren. Do you regularly remember and share what God has done in your life? Maybe you have no children. Maybe you're listening to this and you are a single young adult, but you're still not off the hook, by the way. It's still important to remember and reflect on what God has done. And so, hun, let's talk about some ways that we can do that. I want to give them some tangible ideas to take this.
Well, I think one way that I want to challenge people to do this is to share your walk, your testimony with your kids. This should not be a secret, okay?
Yeah.
Even if you your kids don't need to know all of your past sins, but if you came through rough, if you came through just in a kind of a dark area, but it led you to Christ, give them the version of that says, hey, man, I found Christ because I needed him when I was at my darkest time. So share your testimony with your kids.
Yeah. And keep your eyes open, because sometimes it's not going to be your kids or grandkids. It's going to be a coworker or a neighbor. Like our neighbor, they had moved from Indianapolis, moved in across the street from us, hon, was literally outside. You were getting the paper one Sunday morning and you were complaining.
I think we had a little argument that morning.
And you were just frustrated about church and about the emptiness you felt in your heart. And that's when that neighbor had the real fortitude of understanding that he needed to share a little bit of his faith and his testimony. So that was what opened the door. So always be prepared to give a reason for the hope that you have.
Yeah.
Something else, hon, that I mentioned earlier is to start a gratitude journal about how you can go to Hobby Lobby. I think they still have them, the gratitude journals. But again, you can get a notebook at Staples. But start a gratitude journal about how you see God moving and the ways he is working in your life right now. And I would encourage you to do it during the pandemic, during this time of really a challenging season in our country, that you would focus on what God is doing, where you see him work.
Yeah. I want to add something to this, hun, as part of the challenge. Let your children hear you pray thanks. Yeah. And I'm not just talking, we thank you for the meal kind of thing. If it's kind of lost its meaning, let your children hear you pray, and in your prayer that they know who you give thanks to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Who gets the credit?
Who gets the credit? If your kids know who you're giving, whether it's for your finances, your home, your comfort, your place in life, you let your kids know where you give thanks and keep that alive. And remind them, whether they just hit a home run in a ball game or got an A on a report card, that only came because of the ability or talents that was blessed to them through God.
Yeah.
So teaching your kids that is critical.
Yeah, because we don't want a whiny generation like across the Red Sea, I even heard, of families who made like a shadow box or a collage of their stones of remembrance, so that when visitors came into their home and asked, like, hey, what's this? Like you said, the puzzle, they're ready to share, and that it would give God the glory. So in other words, our words, our actions, our attitudes should all be really just that gratitude, those stones of remembrance, living our lives in a way that bring him glory and point all of the eyes to him.
Yeah, I like Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And Mom and Dad, this is why you take raising your kids in a faith seriously. Yeah. This is why we don't just take it as a random act of like, well, maybe they'll figure it out. Teach them where these things come from, because it has a generational impact, and thank the people who did it for you in your life.
Yeah. And that reminds me, if you did not listen to our show that we did just, I think last week on teens and faith, I really encourage you to go back, because we talk about this. Like, you walking the walk is going to be the greatest influence on your child, having a faith of his own that's resilient and active in a teen and a young adult's life. So you have a lot to play.
All right, so we're going to close things out. Stop your whining and start being thankful, right?
Gratitude your attitude.
Is gratitude your attitude, baby. All right, so we want to thank, again, our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for coming alongside of Rock Solid Radio and Rock Solid Families, allowing us to do what we do. If you like this podcast, if you think it's of value, please share it. Also, we ask that you would give us a rating. A 5-star rating helps move our show up in the search engines so that we can get our message out there and hopefully spread a meaningful and helpful word to other people. So, Hun, anything you need to say?
Well, hey, thanks again for listening to Rock Solid Radio. No matter where you're listening from, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard on today's show, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency. If you have questions you'd like answered on our show, or you want to chime in on something you heard, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time.